Hey, everybody, I'm Ross the Boss, and I want to talk sports with you, cowboy. You know, sports is in high gear right now. I'm sure you guys are watching. We'll talk NBA. Ask me any questions about NBA. I actually went to a game on Saturday. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about Major League Baseball. We'll talk about hockey playoffs. We'll talk about NFL, which they just started their organized practices. Team practices are going on right now. And I'll tell you who's practicing, who's not, what's going on. I'll give you all the scoops. So I'm doing something new today because I like doing new things. And I'm going to take the headlines that are on the internet and we're going to comment about them. I'll let you know what's going on. So we're going to start the show like that. It's called the Headline News with Ross the Boss. And here we go. Hit the graphic. There's no graphic. I just said that to freak her out. But if you can, go to our social media, Facebook, Instagram, even Twitter, and press follow and follow us. I'm always putting hilarious stuff down, so make sure you do that. At MFSN, that's the name you should follow, or Ross the Boss. Either one, you'll be a winner. So let's talk about headlines. What's going on in sports? And I'll have my little opinions about each thing. Don't worry, I have opinions. Joe Burrow, we all know I'm a Bengals fan. He is participating in practice after that surgery, the surgery he had during the season that ended his season last year. He's almost fully repaired. He's practicing. He's out there, and he'll be ready to go for regular season. So Joe Burrow fans, don't worry. He's practicing. He'll be ready. The Bengals will be ready. They're going to be unbelievable next year. I can't wait. The second thing is, this is a big news. This is big. Are you ready? 30 NFL teams approved for full capacity stadiums, which means you're not going to have like half full, quarter full like they did last year, which is pitiful. Full capacity. People will be like this. It's going to be like the old days, drinking beer, food. It's going to be the best. Not like how I went to the Clipper game on Saturday. It wasn't that great. We'll talk about that. Don't worry. We'll talk about that. The Clippers lost too. I was upset. So full capacity NFL games. That's huge. Some other news. Antonio Brown signs with the Buccaneers. He's coming back. He wants to win the second ring with Brady. We'll see what happens. But Antonio Brown, he's back for more. Here's some sad news. Harper, the outfielder for the Phillies, he is out with a left arm contusion. He is not going to be playing for 10 days at least. They just put him on the IL, which is not good because I like him. So another thing that happened is NBA supposed to suspend LeBron because he violated the health violation because he went to an event and he didn't go to he supposed to not go to events because of COVID, obviously. So Charles Barkley was funny. Charles Barkley actually said the NBA does not have the balls to suspend him. And I agree with Charles. I don't think anything's going to happen to Mr. James. Any other player, they probably would have suspended him for like a game, but not LeBron James. He gets to do what he wants. Free reign. Go out every night, party, drink, do anything you want. Doesn't matter. You don't follow the rules. The rules don't apply to LeBron James. They apply to everybody else, but not to LeBron James. So with that, I agree with Charles Barkley on that. Some other news, Julio Jones, who plays for the Atlanta Falcons, a wide receiver, all pro. He is leaving town. He's not going to be an Atlanta Falcon next year. He mentioned some teams he wants to go to. He mentioned the Raiders. He mentioned the Rams. He mentioned the New England Patriots. And I think he's going to go to the Cardinals. Can you imagine him and Hopkins on the same team? Oh, wow. That'd be unbelievable. And Hopkins even said he'll take a salary decrease to get Jones. I mean, they have Jones, Murray. I mean, unbelievable. That'd be unbelievable. Some more news that's going on. Gretzky's leaving. Gretzky was vice president of the Edmonton Oilers, who actually got swept by the Winnipeg Jets in 4 straight games to move on to the next playoff round. Gretzky is going to be a commentator for TNT, not in basketball, in hockey. They got the rights to hockey next season, and you'll see Gretzky in the booth talking hockey, the great one, Yeah, it's true. It's unbelievable. I can't believe it. Some more news that's going on. I'm taking a look here. I'm only telling you the good things. I don't want to tell you all the bad things. Aaron Rodgers mentioned that he has no hard feelings for Jordan Love, the quarterback they drafted 2 years ago in the first round. He's not mad at him. He's mad at the organization. He likes Jordan Love. He admitted it. But Aaron Rodgers, you heard it from me first. He will not be putting on a Green Bay Packer uniform ever again. He'll never wear a uniform ever again that says Green Bay on it. They have to trade him. He'll be gone, or he'll sit out. He doesn't really care. He'll sit out if he has to. He does not want to play in Green Bay. And you know what? I don't blame him. They don't treat him nicely. He was the MVP last year, and they treat him like they don't treat him nicely in Green Bay. And he wants to be respected. I don't blame him. He won a Super Bowl for them. He should have respect. You know what I mean? Another thing that's going on, Jordan Clarkson was named Sixth Man of the Year, which is great. I like Jordan Clarkson. I know I was happy to hear that. Steph Curry, his contract, they have to give him an extension. If they want to keep him in Golden State, I'm sure they will. I'm sure that's a no-brainer. He'll stay in Golden State. Wouldn't it be great if he left? I would love to see him leave, but it will never happen. And the last thing I want to talk about is Deshaun Watson is not going to attend any of the organized practices by the Texans. He said he's not going. This guy has 22, not 21, not 23, 22 counts of like sexual like assaults or misdemeanors or whatever you want to call it by 22 different women. Now, I'm not saying he's guilty. I don't like to accuse people of stuff until they tell their side of the story, but he might have a little problem when it comes to like getting massages. I don't know. Maybe he shouldn't get them anymore. If he does, maybe it should be a guy. But that's me as telling Deshaun, listen, I think it's a good idea. Maybe you should lay off the female masseuses for a little bit until we get this whole thing straightened out. But that's my opinion. But I'm Ross the Boss. Let's talk basketball. As I mentioned before, I actually went to the Clipper game on Saturday. And let me tell you how the whole thing happens. First of all, there are probably 5,000 people there. I show up. I was smart enough to bring a copy of my vaccine. I was smart because if you didn't bring it, you would have to go get tested at the stadium and wait for the results, which take 10 minutes. Ross the Boss had his vaccine card on his phone. He showed his ID. He got right in. You couldn't bring any bags in, nothing. You couldn't bring anything, not even a purse. You can't bring a purse in. You can bring a wallet and your phone, and that's it. So with food, you can't order food and eat it at your seat. You got to order food on your phone, and you wait for it, and you eat it like an animal. Like an animal. Yeah, I said it. Like an animal on one of these little tables outside. And it's the worst. The fun thing about going to a game is you sit down, you get to eat, you get to drink. You can't bring any drinks into the stadium. It's not the same, but I did have fun. It was a blast. I want to thank the Clippers for that. They called me last minute about coming to the game and I went, but it was a blast. I had a great time, but it's just not the same. I felt something was missing. And again, there was probably 5,000 people there. We were spaced out. And of course I was upset because the Clippers lost. And Luka, talk about the game. He was just on fire. I mean, he led that team, and he's definitely should be talked about MVP. He's that good. Luka Doncic is unbelievable. He had over 30 points. Leonard played great. George was okay. I'm not going to say it was good. The problem with the Clippers is this, and I said this beginning of the season, it's their starting guards. Point guard, Patrick Beverley. Is he good enough to win a championship as a point guard? We'll see. I always said no. I never thought Patrick Beverley was a great point guard. I thought he was okay shooter, okay passer, but I don't feel he's like an elite point guard that the Clippers need, that they should have got during the draft, during the trade deadline, which they failed to do. But Beverly went out. They brought Reggie Jackson in. They brought Rondo in. Rondo played pretty well. But for that series, I still like the Clippers, but I'm going to say Clippers in 7, even though they lost home field, losing to Dallas. And when they go back to Dallas, I think on Friday, 17,000 people in the stands, 17,000 in Dallas, Texas, cheering on the Mavericks to beat the Clippers. But I still like the Clippers, maybe because I'm a little biased, but doesn't matter. Let's talk about the other series. That's much a series. There's 8 other series going on. Let's talk about another one. Lakers lost to the Suns. I loved it. As you know, I'm not a Laker fan. I do like the Suns. I'd love Chris Paul. Chris Paul got hurt his shoulder. He couldn't shoot the rest of the game. He still played unbelievable. Anthony Davis was horrible. I mean, that was probably one of his worst games of the year. I think he had like 13 points. He shot like under 30%. It was very bad on his end. And any of you Laker fans out there want to comment about that, that'd be great. But the Suns look good. People still think the Lakers are going to win that series. I'm rooting for the Suns. Ross the Boss wants the Suns to win that series. I picked the Suns to win that series, and they're going to win that series. Let's hope. Another series that I can't believe, I watched this on Sunday, and I was sitting there. It was like late night, and it was actually the Memphis Grizzlies, the 8th seed, played the Utah Jazz, the 1 seed, the best record in the NBA. Best record. They lost to the Memphis Grizzlies at home. And they lost home field advantage. So all that winning, all that coming in first place is all down the drain. They lose home field. You know, it's just unbelievable, the NBA, how it works. But I'm happy for the Grizzlies. You know, they played unbelievable. I watched the game, and I'm actually happy they won. But let's talk about the next series I've been watching, which I really enjoyed. I watched this Sunday. Was the Knicks were at home against the Atlanta Hawks, and Trae Young, first playoff game ever, he went off. He was unbelievable. Reminded me like when Reggie Miller used to come into New York and play the Knicks. You guys remember this? And Reggie would go like this, and he would go crazy during these games. And Spike Lee would yell and scream at him. I mean, the crowd, I'm not going to cuss, but they were saying F you. They were chanting the F you, like thousands of people at Trae Young during the game. They were yelling that during the game at Trae Young. That's how unclassy they are in New York. Shame on New York. There's kids at those games. So Trae Young, unbelievable. He played great. Julius Randle, he should get MVP votes. He had a great regular season. During this playoff game, it was probably his worst game of the year, and the Knicks almost won. So what does that tell you? Randle was horrible, worst game of the year, and they only lost by 2 points to the Atlanta Hawks. So I still think the Knicks have the advantage. I still will take the Knicks to win that series, even though they're down 1 game. But there you go. That's who I like in that series. The Nets Celtics, I don't know if you guys watched it. I'll make this quick. The Celtics were actually playing great the first half. The Nets came out the second half, just blew them off, just blew them out. Durant looked great. Harden looked great. Irving looked great. The big three looked great. As I mentioned before, that will go 4 games. The Nets should sweep them in 4. That's what I think. Maybe it'll be 5. Who knows? But the Nets are my pick to win it all. I like them a lot. I think they're going to be very hard to beat, as we all know. And the other teams, you know, I'm sure people are watching the Sixers. I'm sure people are watching the Portland Trail Blazers. Had a great game, and then they got blown out. The Miami Heat actually played Milwaukee. This is the other series I like. Milwaukee and the Miami Heat actually played each other last year, and Milwaukee had the best record, and the Heat beat them. So this is a huge grudge match, and the Heat. The Milwaukee could have blown some games on purpose and not play the Heat in the first round, but they wanted the Heat. So they won those games in the regular season. They're playing the Heat now, and they're destroying the Heat. I mean, the Heat don't look like the team they were last year. Milwaukee is motivated. They're playing great. It's unbelievable. I actually have a question. Let's see what this genius says. Dr. Dan Ratner. Sounds like a quack, doesn't it? Dr. Dan Ratner. His fake name. If you pick the best player on each major league team in their history, which team would have the worst player? I think he's talking baseball, if I had to guess, because it sounds like a baseball question. And if I had to pick the worst player, the best player out of all of them I know what he's saying. So he wants the worst player for the team that has the best player. I get it. So let me just compute. There's so many great teams. If I had to pick one, it'd be funny to pick the Yankees or somebody. No, I'm not picking the Yankees. Like, there's no way. I would probably have to say, it's a really tough question. I'm just trying to think like who. I mean, I love the Rangers, Nolan Ryan, Juan Gonzalez. I'm just going through all the teams. I mean, San Francisco, Willie. I mean, I don't know who to take. San Diego, Tony Gwynn. I mean, I'm just going through all the teams. The Dodgers had some Gofax, and they had unbelievable players. I mean, I don't know who, Dan. I don't know what team I like. That's a great question. And I mean, I would say Kansas City, but then I got George Brett, Hall of Fame. What am I going to do? I would have to say, if I had to say one, I would just say, oof. I mean, I don't really know. I mean, I'll say this: Baltimore Orioles, Cal Ripken Jr. I always thought he was overrated. So there you go. I answered your question. Baltimore, Cal Ripken Jr. There you go. You happy? George Tucci's here. He's one of my comrades, Canada, one of the biggest NBA experts. George, I was just talking about the NBA. I was just talking about the Milwaukee Bucks and Miami Heat series. I don't know if you're watching that, George, but both those teams look good. But again, I think the Bucks are just destroying them. I think they're motivated because of what happened last year, as I mentioned before. And you know, the Sixers are playing great ball too. I mean, I can tell you in the East, it's going to be the Sixers and Nets in the championship in the Eastern Division. And I also said the Lakers Clippers will be playing in the same thing, but I don't know if that's going to happen right now. I do like the Suns. I did say that. Let's look at, I'm not going to freak out. Let's look at the games for tonight and we'll go over. So the Celtics are playing the Nets. The Nets are 9-point favorite. Take the Nets. Lakers are playing the Suns, George, at 7:00 my time, 10:00 Giorgio's time. I like the Suns again. And then the big game I like is the Mavericks in Dallas. I mean, that's going to be that game's at 7:30. The other series that's going on is the Wizards and Sixers. I love Westbrook. I love Beal. I think they're the best two-card combo in the league. I think George will agree with me on that. But the Sixers are just too tough with Embiid and Simmons. I mean, they're just stacked with even like Curry's brother Seth. I mean, the Sixers have a great team. They had the best division in the East this year. I like them a lot. They play tomorrow at 4. Atlanta Knicks play tomorrow at 4:30, and then we got Memphis and Utah on to end the night. And the other series that I'm watching is Denver and Portland. I didn't talk about much about that, but I want to talk a little bit. Portland won the first game. I mean, Portland upset Denver. And then last night, I don't know if you saw it, but Denver just blew them out. I mean, I have no excuse, no explanation. I mean, Joker, or I call him Joker, he's the MVP. You know I'm all right. Tucci, don't argue with me because you know I'm right. But I'm telling you right now that series could go 6 or 7 games. I love C.J. McCollum. I love Dame Leonard. I mean, both those two guards are great, but I don't know if they can keep up with the forwards for Denver. The forwards for Denver are just so strong. Porter Jr. and Joker. I mean, even, you know, they even got some guys in trades and stuff that I like. You know, they have some really good talent in Denver right now, and we'll see what happens. I got a question from George Tucci. Suns win if Chris Paul's shoulder allows him to shoot. supposedly, George, I did my research, and the Suns came out and said that he didn't hurt his shoulder that badly. He strained it a little bit, but he's fine. He's shooting fine. And I agree with you. Chris Paul is the big X factor in that series. If he's shooting, he scores 20 points a game, the Suns win it. What do you think, Giorgio? I think I'm right. I think, but if Chris Paul can't score and LeBron and AD go off, the Suns have a long series. They just got to contain LeBron. I mean, I don't know if you guys watched the game, but when LeBron's 280 in all seriousness, 6'9", 6'8", he's all muscle. I mean, there's no way you can hit him and he falls down. It's impossible. What he does, it's called flopping. And LeBron's famous for it. And Giorgio, I'm right. LeBron loves to flop. He's a great actor. He's been in many movies, TV shows, producer. He knows what he's doing. But I mean, they should really start finding him for flopping, because there's no way like a little point guard can push him and he falls like into the bleachers. I mean, come on. I mean, there's no way. So I think they should do something about the flopping. I mean, it's becoming like, do you guys ever watch soccer in European leagues, and these guys go down, and they don't go down because they're hurt. They go down because they want to rest. And they come out with it's like a miracle. They come out with the stretcher. The guys carry him off. The guy's like laying there like it's his last right. And all of a sudden he gets up like it's a miracle, like you see on the Sunday morning evangelist shows. He gets up and he's ready to run. I mean, he's not limping. He's healed. I feel the same thing with LeBron. I mean, with LeBron, it's the same deal. I mean, it's like he's laying there for like 2 minutes. 2 minutes. I don't think he's there because he's hurt. He's there because he's resting. I mean, there was a player for the Mets got hit in the face with a fastball going 98 miles an hour, bloody, horrible contusions, unbelievable. And he was down for 30 seconds. That's getting hit by a fastball in the face. LeBron gets hurt by some little point guard. It's unbelievable. But that's me. My man, Dr. Dan is asking me a question. Hold on, let me just have my glasses on, so I got to figure out how to read it. Dan the man. He's Dan the man. It's not Dr. Dan Rand. It's Dan the man. Okay, Dan the man. Aside from Buckner's error, what's the biggest fielding error in history? That's a great question. So we're talking baseball. Remember Bill Buckner, we were on the audience, World Series. Bill Buckner, God rest his soul, passed away, had this little ground ball hit by Mookie Wilson, New York Met. It was an easy ground ball, but sometimes during pressure situations, bad things happen right through Buckner's legs. Long story short, the Mets win the World Series. I mean, there's been some pretty bad plays, but I'm trying to think like World Series wise that were just as bad. Craig Nettles had a play against the Reds in '76 that blew that game when they played the Reds. I remember I was at that game. That's why I remember it. I've seen many bad plays, but not as many bad plays that like ruined the game so much that determined the series, like Bill Buckner. That was something that, I mean, I can name errors from different players made, but it wasn't like it ruined the series. Like Bill Buckner's thing was like game changing, unbelievable. It was just bad, and there's no other worse error than that. And I think the bad thing is Bill Buckner was a great hitter, and he was a great fielder and a great player, but that stuck with him until he died. That whole era. I mean, I actually have a picture somewhere in my office of Bill Buckner and Mookie Wilson together at first base after the error happened, and I had them sign both copies. I'll bring that out next time. I have that copy. I have that picture somewhere around the house. So we talked a lot about basketball. Any more basketball questions? I'd be happy to answer them. Here's a question. George Tucci, are the Lakers champions of old or old champions? We'll know tonight. So George is asking, Lakers roster's kind of old. I mean, LeBron's old. AD's not that old, George. Uh, they have some young guys, but overall they're probably on the older side. You're right. But I think we'll see the Lakers are going to come out tonight. LeBron's going to have a huge game. I feel the Lakers. This is a must game for the Lakers, George. You know that. So I think the Lakers are going to win tonight. Anthony Davis will not play like he did the other night. And let me just tell you guys about Anthony Davis. George, tell me if you agree. When Anthony Davis played the other game, he was like he never got into the paint. I felt every time he wanted to go in the paint, there was like a invisible wall that didn't allow him in. I don't know what was going on. I never seen that before in my life. He just stood outside of the three-point line the whole game. He wouldn't get. He was afraid of the center for the Suns, Anton. He was afraid of him. He didn't want anything to do with that guy, and I don't blame him. That guy's good. He had like 17 rebounds, 20-something points. He was great, and I felt that Davis is a rebounder. He's not underneath the basket. He's at the three-point line. So Davis has to start playing inside. I know they have Drummond, who's an inside guy, but Drummond and Davis have to be playing inside together. And I don't know why they're not. I don't understand that whole thing. Maybe we'll see what happens tonight. But but I feel the Lakers will win tonight. I think it's a must game. I don't know if Paul's 100%, and that makes me worried. He says he is, but I feel he needs a couple more days rest. But I still think the Suns can win that series. I'm hoping they will. But tonight is a game like you'll see LeBron go crazy on the field. He'll play 40 minutes. This is LeBron's stat line. You ready, George? 40 minutes. He'll have 41 points, 16 rebounds, and 12 assists with 3 blocks. That's what LeBron would do tonight. You heard it from me first, Ross the Boss. Let's talk baseball. I don't know if you guys are watching baseball at all, but I am. I'm wearing a red shirt. We just interviewed a Red yesterday for our show, which will air tomorrow. Scott Hennigan for the Cincinnati Reds center fielder, who's just brought up, and he's from Southern California. We did a great interview with him. Make sure you guys watch. He was great. We had a great time with him. You guys should definitely watch. It'll be on our network tomorrow. Let's talk baseball. The biggest story now in baseball, the Tampa Bay Devil Rays, $67 million payroll. $67 million. Think about it. That's nothing. That's like, I mean, it's nothing. I mean, the Yankees payrolls, I think, quadruple that. 12 games. They're in first place. They went to the World Series last year, right? World Series, American League champions. 12 games in a row they've won. 12 games in a row. And they lost Snell. They lost a lot of their players from last year's team. But some reason they get minor leaguers. They sign these guys, and these guys flourish on their team. It's unbelievable. I don't get it. Maybe he says, oh, all these big market teams have the advantage. No, they don't. Look at Tampa Bay. Whoever the GM of that team is a genius. Really. It's unbelievable. Let's talk about more streaks. San Diego Padres, 9 in a row. Well, I think they lost last night, though. Maybe it's not 9 in a row anymore. But they did win 9 in a row. They were in first place yesterday. And they are ahead of the Dodgers. Talking about the Dodgers won 7 in a row, swept the Giants, who were in first place. The Dodgers are playing great, even though A.J. Pollock's out, Cody Bellinger's out. Now Mookie Betts is day to day. They got Dustin May is hurt. They got so many injuries on that Dodger team. If you look at their lineup, I don't even recognize half the players anymore. I'm not a Dodger fan, but I know who's their starters. I know who's not. But they have a lot of guys that are hurt, and they're still winning. That's how good their starting pitching is. They're unbelievable. They will win the West by 9 or 10 games when it comes to September. They're just too good starting pitching-wise unless some more injuries happen and people go down, which could happen, but I don't foresee that. Doesn't matter. They just fill them in. They just fill the people in anyway. They have, as to quote Tony Todd, they have backups for backups. They're unbelievable. So the Dodgers look great. The Giants started great. Now they lost 4 or 5 in a row. They're back to third place. The Central of the National League, St. Louis is playing good ball. I guess they had a vote of who the most hated team in the National League was, and it's the St. Louis Cardinals. Every team hates the Cardinals. They're like, not just the Reds, but like every team, like the Cubs, Dodgers. Everybody hates the Cardinals, but they're always competitive. They have a great team. And then the East is like the worst division. Like I think all the teams are like near 500. You got the Mets, you got Atlanta, who's supposed to be good. They're not playing that great. You got some really mediocre teams in the East, and the East is supposed to be the best division. And Harper just went out with the Phillies, their best player. So I don't know. The East could be in trouble. We'll see what happens. Let's talk about the American League. The team I love, and I talked about them before, is the Chicago White Sox. I think on paper, they're the best team on paper, pitching and hitting, even though Luis Robert, whatever you want to say his name, is out till August. I still think the White Sox have a very strong team. And we actually got to interview Lucas Giolito a couple weeks ago. You can watch the interview on our network. Watch it, MFSN, Lucas Giolito. We talked to him for a half hour. He was great. Great kid. Wish him luck. The White Sox are the team in the American League, I think. The Yankees, biggest payroll. Their starting pitching looks okay. Their hitting's not doing great, except Aaron Judge. He's killing the ball. But everybody else is kind of mediocre. Stanton's down. He's hurt. So, and the Red Sox are kind of cooled down a little bit. They were hot for a while. Now they're mediocre. And, in the West, as I mentioned, the Oakland A's every year have a great team. I don't know how they do it. They have no payroll. They have a great minor league system. They have Billy Beane, who's their GM, who's a genius. I just feel the A's are going to be tough to beat in the West. I do root for the Angels, but I just think Angels don't have the starting pitching. Trout's out for 8 weeks, which is going to kill them for their offense. So that all being said, I think the Angels need a lot of help. Also, I got a question from Matthew Modine. He's an actor. It's okay. Oakland Athletics will win the World Series. That's a big statement. This is the problem with the Oakland Athletics. Let me tell. I'm friendly with a lot of those guys. I go to spring training. I'm in the locker room. I hang out with them. They treat me like royalty. So I like the Oakland A's. But the problem with the A's is this: when you get to the playoffs, every team has like 2 or 3 ace starters. Like the Yankees have Cole. It's like the A's don't have that. The A's don't have they have Cole Irwin. Maybe he can pitch, but he's not the elite pitcher like some of these teams have. Like the White Sox have Giolito. A lot of these teams have like some great pitchers. The Oakland doesn't have that. That's the problem when they get to the playoffs. You need to have those elite starters like the Dodgers have. I mean, the Dodgers starting staff, if you can name a better starting staff, the only one I compare it to is the Atlanta Braves when they had Glavine, Maddox, Smoltz. I mean, that's the only starting staff I can think of that the Dodgers compared to with Kershaw and they have Kershaw, Walker Buehler, and then they have the Cy Young winner. It just their starting pitching is ridiculous. I mean, they really are. The bullpen's not that good, but the starters are great. But we'll see what happens. But I hope the A's do win the World Series, but it's not going to happen. I love Chapman. I love Olsen. Those two guys are just great. But again, they don't have the starting pitching. You need to have the starters. You need the starters. But and then as I mentioned before, the hockey playoffs are starting up. I'm watching a lot of hockey at the house. I mentioned earlier the Edmonton Oilers got swept, and they actually have the best player in the league in Connor McDavid, and their goaltending by Smith was just bad. They got swept by Winnipeg. I don't know how the Winnipeg did it, but congratulations, Winnipeg. Their goaltender really stepped it up. And then, Tampa Bay lost last night. They're the defending champions in the Stanley Cup. They lost. I love Las Vegas in the West. If I had to pick a team to win the Stanley Cup, I'm picking Vegas. I don't think they have any huge stars, but they have like three great lines. They have great goaltending. I just think they have a really strong team. We'll see what happens. They came close a couple years ago. I feel this year could be their year. Ross the Boss is usually pretty good about this stuff. We'll see what happens with Vegas. If anybody else has any more questions, we have about 9 more minutes to go. We got more sports we can talk about. We could talk about fantasy baseball. Let's talk about baseball more. Let's talk about NL MVP. If you had to pick any player in the National League to be MVP, who would you pick? My pick, because I'm wearing the jersey, is Mr. Winker for the Cincinnati Reds. He is leading the league in hitting. He is second in home runs. He's like second or third in RBIs. He's killing the ball. I mean, he's leading the league in runs. I mean, he's leading the league in so many categories right now. If I had to pick an MVP, it would be Winker for the Cincinnati Reds. George Trucci. I can't wait to read this question. So, will Mike Trout be considered the best player ever? That's a good question. Best player ever. See, if you look at stats, I know, George, you're not a stat guy, but I am. Pete Rose, over 4,000 hits. To do that, you got to average 200 hits a season for 20 years. Think about that. 200 hits average for 20 years. You got to stay healthy. See, Trout, I don't know. I don't think he'll be the best player ever. I mean, you got Rose, you got Mantle, you got Ruth. I mean, but Trout will be first ballot, unanimous choice for the Hall of Fame. He'll have 3,000 hits. He'll have 500 home runs. He just has to stay healthy. He's been getting hurt the past few years. Mike Trout is an unbelievable player, but he's almost 30. I think he could be 30. I remember he was like 21. He couldn't even drink. I remember he was playing for the Angels. And now he's married. He has a kid. He's like, he doesn't live with his parents anymore. I remember when he was living with his mom, would do his laundry for him and everything else. But now he has a wife. He has a baby. He's expecting a second baby coming up. But Trout, in my opinion, no, he's not going to be. People are not going to say he's the best player to ever play. But for the generation he's playing in, and all the players that play against him, they all say he's the best player. I mean, again, I interviewed Scott Heinerman yesterday with Dr. Dan Ratner and Tony Todd, and we had a great interview. And even Scott Heinerman said, like, the best player in the league is Mike Trout. Like, he idolized him growing up. That, it kind of makes Trout look old, huh? But Scott Heinerman, who's a young prospect for the Cincinnati Reds, all the players think Mike Trout's the best player. And I agree 1,000%. I think off the field he's great. On the field he's great. He's great with the kids. He gives back to the community. It's just not what he does on the field. It's what he does off the field. He's unbelievable. And yes, I feel like he's at least in my top 10 best players ever. He'll probably be in that list. So the answer to your question is yes, George. I agree with you 100%. Let's look at, I think we went over all the basketball playoffs we went over. And let's look at today's baseball, what's happening in baseball today, what you should be watching in baseball today. I'm just seeing any good pitching matchups. Who comes back today for the Mets? This is big. Who I think's the Cy Young winner again is Mr. DeGrom for the Mets. He comes back from injury today. Listen what DeGrom's stats are. This is. I mean, I just feel bad for him. He's 3-2, ERA 0.68. 0.68. So his run support must be he has to have the worst run support in the league. I mean, if he has 2 losses and his ERA is 0.68 and he's 3-2, I mean, I don't know how much longer I can pitch for that team for. But he comes back tonight against the Rockies. The Mets are at home. They have to be a heavy favorite in that game. The Mets, Colorado's pitching Freeland, who hasn't pitched the whole year. So that should be a great game. Kershaw pitches tonight for the Dodgers. He has 6 wins. He's pitching against his old teammate Zach Greinke in Houston. Remember, that's a big, like, Dodgers Houston. That must be a big rivalry game because Houston beat the Dodgers in the World Series that year. They cheated with the trash can stuff. So there could be a lot of stuff going on in that game. If you should, I bet there'd be some ball. I bet you. This is another good bet. Tucci, you can take the bet for me. That Kershaw will throw at some players. I mean, he's on the mound. He's nasty. I mean, he's not a nice guy on the mound, Kershaw. He's very competitive. I say that game tonight, there'll be a fight. How about that? Take that, Tucci. That's going to be interesting to watch. My boy Lucas Giolito pitches tonight for the White Sox against the most hated team. This is a great matchup. I'll tell you why, and then I'll let you guys go very soon. Lucas Giolito is pitching against his high school teammate. They were teammates. Jack Flattery, who's 8-0. Jack is 8-0 this year. Lucas is 3-4, but he's been pitching. He's been pitching great. He's been mowing people down like crazy. It's in Chicago, so he's going against his old teammate at Harvard Westlake High School in Los Angeles. And Jack is 8-0. He hasn't lost this year. So that's going to be a great game to watch too. That's on like an hour and a half. So I have a lot of sports to watch tonight. I know what you guys are doing, but I know I'm doing. And then we got, let's see what other matchups are going on. In hockey, the Canadians are playing the Maple Leafs. I know George is a big Canadian fan. He used to be a Maple Leaf fan, but then he quit. But the Maple Leafs are leading the series 2-1, and they play today. That should be a great game. And then we got Nashville's playing Carolina. Carolina, 20,000 people in the stands, all wearing white, no masks. They just go crazy there. So that series is a 2-2, and that should be a great game too. I got so many sports to watch. I don't know what to do. I really don't. I mean, we covered almost everything. I mean, we talked baseball, we talked basketball, even talked football, even though it doesn't start till August. I gave some opinions on everything, but we talked everything. I had a great time talking to everybody. I love answering the questions. If anybody else wants to ask more questions, you can do it after the show ends. Just type it in. I'll answer them, or somebody else will, but I'll probably will do it. And again, make sure you subscribe. Follow, press the like button, subscribe to our channel, tell all your friends about it. We got some great interviews coming up. We got Morris Chestnut. I actually interviewed 2 days ago Morris Chestnut, the actor. We talked baseball. This guy's a baseball nut. And he likes football. He played football. He played a football player in 3 different movies. We talked about that too. It was unbelievable. Morris Chestnut was the best. And I got Phil Rosenthal coming on. He's the executive producer of Raymond. He's coming on the show. We got some unbelievable guests coming on MFSN. We want you guys to be part of it. Make sure you subscribe. I'm Ross the Boss. I'll answer any questions you have. And tomorrow is our fantasy show. We're doing waiver wire. It's going to be great. I'm excited. You're excited. Everyone's excited. I'll see you tomorrow. I'm Ross the Boss, and I love talking sports with you, cowboy.
As a reward for making Gilcliff the undisputed clean energy drink of America and beyond, we've packed in more B vitamins, electrolytes, and killer taste than ever. And as a bonus, we've made the ultimate loyalty program. It's not a Coke, it's not a club, it's the Gilcliff Coke Club. Tap into special offers like flash sales and exclusive merch, deep discounts, and eternal awesomeness. Go to Gilcliff.com to get your discounts on.